Okay, mate, I know we were expecting some new developments to come through, but I'm afraid to say that some.
Stretched along the shores of the North Sea, which brings its own challenges with sand sweeping onto the track. Welcome to Zandvoort, welcome to Free Practice, and welcome to a sea of orange.
Okay, give us some good, consistent laps, please. We're looking for good data that we can work into a race strategy. Mind that front wing, it's going to need replacing if it takes too much damage. Car repairs have set us back a little. Program complete and a job well done. We got some excellent data with that run, so come on back to the garage and I can take you through the numbers. Pitting this lap then. Come into the pits at the end of this lap.
Sadly, it's time to say
Okay, don't worry about tyres, just give it everything. In this test, we just want to make sure we can lap close to our rival's pace. Okay, test complete, and that was a really good job indeed. We got a lot of valuable information out of that. Well done. Right, let's have you in at the end of this lap, please. It looks like rain is inbound and we're expecting it in around 5 minutes. 5 minutes until the rain.
What an incredible practice session that.
nice one. Okay, reminder, a neat way to recharge the batteries by lifting at certain points when you feel you can and by gentle braking. Try those this lap and see how you get on. Program complete, program complete. These results will do, although you could definitely do better. Consider giving it another shot. Okay, we can take you this lap. We'll be seeing at least 20 minutes of light rain. I'd take a set of intermediate.
And if today's practice is any Just look at that sea of orange. No surprises if I tell you we're here in Holland at Zandvoort for the Max Verstappen celebration party. It's a quick track and perfect for high speeds, high stakes qualifying. Welcome along to the Dutch Grand Prix qualifying day. With qualifying complete, all that remains now is the main event.
DRS is being enabled this lap. We can use DRS when you're within 1 second of the car ahead and in the DRS zone. First position, front of the pack. Verstappen behind you now. They're on fresh softs. Your pit window is going to open in 3 laps time. Pit window opens in 3 laps. 13 laps to go. We're approaching the pit window and you're going to be on mediums. Okay, mate, tyres are running hot, mate, tyres are running hot. Please keep the temps down if you can. Okay, unlucky, mate. That wasn't quite what we needed, but let's not worry about it. Get your head down and chin up. There's a long way to go. Okay, be aware, the grip levels are going to start falling away soon. Box, box, we're coming in this lap. Confirmed, we'll receive you at the end of this lap. You're leading the pack, that's P1, and Verstappen's behind. Okay, they're on old softs. Your pit window is open, pit window currently open. Okay, we're into the last 10 laps now. Remember, box this lap. Keep an eye on your distance to the speed limit line as you approach and make sure you don't speed. Okay, there seems to have been a problem attaching the right rear wheel. We need to try and put that behind us, and let's finish this race strong. That was our last stop. No more scheduled pit stops. Let's go. You might experience some understeer now that you're in the wake of the car ahead. Try to get past as soon as possible. Valtteri is in for his stop. The car behind you's just come in for the hard tyres. Car behind, running hard tyres. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 24.1 seconds. They're on fresh mediums. They're in 19th place. Gap to your teammate behind, 25.4 seconds. Okay, mate, we've got some clear track in front of us, and let's make the best of it. So please make this next one a very fast lap. Great stuff. It looked like you made easy work of that target. Let's try and keep that going right through to the end of the race. Okay, so we're leading our teammate by 41.7 seconds. Okay, mate, this is the final lap of the race. Final lap. You're in first position, front of the pack. That's Alonso behind. They're on fresh mediums. Okay, mate, final lap. Keep your concentration and let's bring it home.
Nice one. Very lovely drive. On to the next one.
That's a race win and your second race win in a row. Fantastic job.
Many doubted whether they could pull off the win here in Zandvoort, but they've done so in spectacular style.
Well, that's 2 race wins in a row for them. I think they'll be really happy with that. I mean, 1 race win is great, but to have 2, you know that you've got it. You're a little bit more comfortable in your skin. This is a great sign of maybe what's to come next.
Sauber in the #1 spot on the podium today. What a thrilling race, and what an excellent result for this team, who've never stopped fighting for that top step. It's been an absolutely wild weekend of Formula One action, and I can't wait to see what's next.
It seems as if you have a new rival. This is the perfect opportunity to show the world why you belong in this sport, and to show me why you belong amongst my very exclusive clientele. That's a joke. I love working with you.